In August 2023, at least 7 people were stabbed and one was killed in the jail. Good Lord. The violence spanned 5 units and 3 floors in less than 24 hours. So you get in there, you're in trouble. It started at 11:30 p.m. when officers discovered that people from one housing zone had opened their zone door and entered another zone to assault people. So this Department of Justice investigation into Rice Street, let's check it out real quick. Civil rights violations identified. We find reasonable cause to believe that Fulton County and the Fulton County Sheriff's Office violate constitutional and federal statutory rights of people incarcerated in the Fulton County Jail. I'm cursing a lot today, but we're going to edit it, so we're good. Protection from harm. The Fulton County Jail does not adequately protect incarcerated people from a substantial risk of serious harm from violence by other incarcerated people inside the facilities. Its facilities. We got to see it live in 4K. Someone getting stabbed. Violent acts by incarcerated people against other incarcerated people in the jail include homicides, stabbings, and sexual abuse. People with serious mental illness, people identified as gay or transgender, and we heard this from the Department of Justice, and young people are particularly vulnerable to violence in the jail. Poor supervision, classification, jail maintenance, contraband control, and investigations contribute to the unacceptable violence. Correction officials have a duty to protect prisoners from violence at the hands of prisoners. Jail officials violate the 8th and 14th Amendment rights of those in their custody when they are deliberately indifferent to an excessive risk of violence. Occasional isolated attacks by one prisoner or on another may not constitute cruel and unusual punishment, but confinement in a prison where violence and terror reign is actionable. Deliberate indifference may be established where serious inmate on inmate violence is the norm or something close to it. And it sounded like, from what we heard from Woody and several others that was the case. We even got to see a video of it last week. Failure to classify or separate violent from nonviolent people can amount to deliberate indifference and create an excessive risk of violence to the incarcerated population. The failure to adequately supervise and monitor incarcerated people, provide sufficient staffing, confiscate dangerous contraband, and investigate misconduct may also constitute deliberate indifference and expose incarcerated people to a substantial risk of serious harm. And if we can know and prove that Rice Street was used as a tool by the DA's office to pressure some of these plea deals, man, stuff's about to hit the fan. I wonder if Trump's going to get involved in this. I don't know that he would, but I mean, Fandy's already taking shots at him, so we'll have to see what happens there. The jail exposes incarcerated people to extreme violence and the risk of serious harm. Leadership at the county and sheriff's office are aware of the violence in the jail and have publicly decried it. That's true. Yet they have failed to adequately action to address the crisis, and homicides, stabbings, and other violent actions continue at dangerous levels. Killings, stabbings, and assaults are common in the jail. In less than 24 hours, in August 2023, at least 7 people were stabbed and one was killed in the jail. Good Lord. The violence spanned 5 units and 3 floors in less than 24 hours. So you get in there, you're in trouble. It started at 11:30 p.m. when officers discovered that people from one housing zone had opened their zone door and entered another zone to assault people. They just discovered it. They're like, oh, that's interesting. Why are the doors open over there? Frank, you gonna go check that out? And I just finished my lunch. I don't want to go over there. All right. The next day at 2:21 p.m., an officer heard screaming coming from a restrictive housing unit on the 7th floor. He found one incarcerated person with blood on his shoulder and a second incarcerated person on the floor in a pool of blood. That person died from multiple stab wounds. The locking mechanism for the doors in that unit had been broken. And while officers tried to secure the scene, incarcerated people kept trying to assault each other. One incarcerated person had to be treated for exhaustion. Almost simultaneously, 5 minutes later, at 2:26, a sergeant found another incarcerated man with blood on his face and chest in another unit. The victim required emergency medical transportation for multiple puncture wounds to his face and back following an attack. At 9:15 p.m., an officer tased someone to break up a fight. Medical attention for the taser deployment was delayed because the jail was overwhelmed with stretcher calls. From 2022 to the present, 6 incarcerated people have died in violent attacks at the jail. Oh, here we go. They're going to lay it out for us. In April 2024, this year, a 37-year-old man died after being assaulted by another incarcerated person. Medical staff found the victim lying at the entrance of the housing unit with multiple wounds and covered in blood. The victim was stabbed 20 times with a 9-inch weapon and sustained stab wounds to the neck, head, torso, arms, and legs. And this is in less than 24 hours, y'all. In August of 2023, a 23-year-old man died when he was stabbed multiple times by one or more other incarcerated people as described above. The victim was found lying face down on the floor of the day room in a pool of blood with deep lacerations to his upper back. He had stab wounds on his head, neck, abdomen, back, and arms. August 2023. A 34-year-old man died from strangulation. The victim was found unresponsive in his cell. They're going to keep this place open, though. In November 2022, a 32-year-old man died in the mental health unit after his cellmate allegedly assaulted him. The victim's feet were bound, and he had a bloody nose and raccoon eyes, a sign of head trauma. Medical responders reported that his body was cold to the touch. In October 2022, a 20-year-old man, so young, died in the mental health unit after being strangled by his cellmate. The victim was found wrapped in a county-issued blanket with straps tied around his ankles, knees, waist, chest, and neck. In September of 2022, a 33-year-old man died after being stabbed by another incarcerated person. The victim had a stab wound between his shoulder and neck and a deep gaping wound below his elbow. A significant percentage of the homicide victims had one or more serious mental illnesses. All have been incarcerated for months or years. Their average length of stay in the jail was 253 days. The longest stay was 654 days. Okay, so these aren't the ones that happened within 24 hours. The ones they mentioned earlier were, these people had been in there for a longer time. So excuse me, all. All 6 victims were black men. Shocker. Half of the homicides at the jail involved sharpened weapons. I would assume so. Assaults and stabbings with man-made shanks are a feature of the life at the jail. In May of 2024, 4 incarcerated people entered another man's cell and stabbed him 8 times in his sleep. It's interesting how they just say they entered his cell. Goes to the conditions of the jail. Days before the April 2024 stabbing death, another incarcerated man was stabbed in the head and did not seek medical treatment for 10 hours because of the ongoing threats on his life. One of the 2023 homicide victims was injured in 3 previous stabbings at the jail. So this wasn't his first rodeo. According to the sheriff's office reports in 2023, According to the sheriff's office reports, in 2023, there were 1,054 assaults on incarcerated people and 314 stabbings in the jail. We mentioned they did not stab people on Sunday. It's essentially what it turns out to. 52 Sundays in a year plus 314. It's 366 days. In 2023, the rate of stabbing at the jail was 1.5 times the rate of stabbings in the New York City jail and more than 27 times the rate of all incidents involving an edged weapon in the Miami-Dade County jails. The jail had as many stabbings in a single month as the Miami-Dade jails, which housed 1.5 times more people had all year. I had knives put to my throat, and I had to call my mom telling them, please wire somebody some money or I'm going to be killed. Nobody should be subject to that at a jail where you're supposed to be waiting to get your day in court. Fulton County Jail detainee, September 2023 meeting of Board of Commissioners. And again, a lot of the people that were in Rice Street were innocent. And here's a graph there. They show the rate of stabbings. Look at this. Good God. Rate of stabbings per 100,000 people. Fulton County, whoop. New York, not as bad. Miami-Dade seems like a pretty safe place. I hate to say. Now, whoever thought you would say that. We also analyzed violence in jail by examining violent incidents in the same 2 months in consecutive years. More people were injured in violent incidents during February and August 2023 than during February and August of 2022. Generally, violence in the jail appears to have increased from 2022 to 2023.
These niggas lacking.
Interesting. Because didn't we just hear Mr. Labatt say, hey, since I got in office, we've been doing some great things and we've been making some progress. We've been putting things in place. But honestly, hey, we just didn't have the right funding and we didn't have the right people in place. The DOJ found that there haven't been any improvements. It's actually gotten worse. The violence in the jail has appeared to have increased. And from February to August of 2023, the amount of violence remained high, even as the population declined. Violent incidents at the main jail, a 10-day comparison. February, August, 2022, February, August. I mean, can we say neglect here? Sheriff Labatt, this is your responsibility. What happened? Things got worse. It got more violent. Don't blame funding. Please. Rice Street says the DA dangled Rice Street over the witness's head, hoping they would turn on Thug, which was being held in Cobb County. There's got to be a way they can prove this. Somebody saying, you want to go to Rice Street? Which didn't we hear with Condarius Zachary and his dad on the phone with the detective being like, hey, I'm just trying to help y'all out. We'll send him to Rice Street. Y'all remember that phone call? That really unprofessional phone call? In the first 9 months of 2023, there were over 200 emergency transports of incarcerated people to an outside hospital for injuries from assaults. In one case, in August of 2023, medical staff at the jail treated an incarcerated person after several other incarcerated people reportedly stabbed him in the face and beat him. He reported pain and difficulty breathing, and medical staff sent him to the hospital for a possible rib fracture. In July of 2023, an incarcerated person was sent to the hospital after another assault by multiple people. He had 9 total stab wounds and required care from complex lacerations, and to rule out a tendon injury in his hand. In May of 2023, an incarcerated person was sent to the hospital for injuries to his scalp, chest, arm, thigh, back, hand from stabbing. His assault used a 16-inch shank in the attack. There were more emergency medical transports from the jail for injuries from assaults over this 9-month period in 2023 than there were in all of 2022. Sheriff Labat, what happened? You said things were cool. This does not sound okay to me. 233 emergency transports following assaults from January 1st to September 2023, compared to 199 emergency transports following assaults in 2022. In some cases, officers have allowed or initiated violence at the jail. Interesting. In February of 2023, a detention officer opened the door to let an incarcerated person leave his assigned housing zone and entered another housing zone where he and multiple others attacked someone. Although the officer witnessed the assault, she did not report it or get medical help for the victim, and she later sprayed cleaning solution on the blood. The officer was terminated and criminally charged for her conduct. In April 2022, a jail deputy was fired after he opened an incarcerated person's cell, brought him to another person's cell, then stood by and watched as the two men fought. When a federal court ended a prior consent decree over the conditions at the jail 9 years ago, the sheriff's department had reported 2 physical assaults with a weapon in the jail in January 2015, and such assaults in December of 2014. By comparison, there were 7 stabbing incidents in January of 2024 and 10 stabbings in December of 2023. Good God. Over 3 times the reported number of assaults with any type of weapon at the end of the court's oversight. There is also reason to believe that the sheriff's office data does not capture the true extent of the violence inside the jail. I believe it. Not all violent incidents at the jail are reported and appropriately documented. For example, in September of 2023, we advised counsel for the county and the sheriff's office of a report that an incarcerated person had been stabbed the week before and required medical attention. In response, the jail's medical staff met with this person and confirmed that he had multiple stab wounds to his chest, back, and hands. No incident report documents this assault, and the person told the medical staff that although he reported the stabbing to an officer, he was not taken to medical for treatment until he alerted counsel of the incident. We also identified instances of incarcerated people transported to an outside hospital for injuries consistent with violent assaults without incident reports documenting what had occurred. I mean, I could sit here and read through this all day. We stopped at page 11. Let's read this last paragraph here. Low staffing levels in the jail described in Section 3 contribute to failure to report many violent incidents. Another factor is a victim's fear of retaliation for disclosing the violence. Makes sense. For example, in March of 2024, a victim suffered through the night until the next morning because he was afraid to report that he had been stabbed. Although this victim ultimately reported the assault, he refused to identify the assailants, saying that doing so would put him in danger anywhere in the jail. In a separate incident that month, an incarcerated man with multiple puncture wounds to his back and arm denied having been assaulted, instead insisting he fell out of bed. Fulton County, we got to do better. Mr. Vegas says, I have no words. We're going to continue to shine a light on this. I'm going to save this document and we're going to get through this whole thing. So what I'll do, if we have a break in the upcoming trial, we'll continue to read through this entire document piece by piece until we get through the whole thing and continue to get the word out here about what's happening behind this Fulton County jail system, because it's absolutely corrupt, absolutely terrible. And I can't imagine, man, getting a misdemeanor and going into prison and dying over a misdemeanor, simple battery, something you may be innocent of. And if what they're saying is true, this is supposed to be a holding place for people who are waiting to go to trial. or who are waiting on bond or who are waiting to speak to their attorneys, it's just not right.